Good morning. Thank you for getting up so early in Vegas. I know that's not easy. The folks here asked me to ask you to turn off your cell phones. Apparently it messes with the recording that they're making of this session. Okay, my name is Kevin Jerstead. I'm a group program manager at Microsoft working on Windows Presentation Foundation. And this morning we're going to talk about killer content experiences. And with me this morning, I'm joined by Robert Larson, Vice President of Product Development at the New York Times, Nathan Dunlap, Senior Interactive Designer at IdentityMine, and Warwick Fitzgerald, CTO of Live Technology. And we're going to be talking about the various aspects of creating really compelling and profitable end-user experiences for content. So we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. This is an ambitious session, to try to squeeze in an hour, and we want to leave some time from Q&A, but basically we're going to try and touch on a little bit of the design, a little bit of the business side of things, and hear from the New York Times about how that's going, and also sort of, the art of the user experience components that goes into a great user experience for content. So I think it's important to take a step back before you dive into how to move the experience forward and think about how we got here to begin with. For the past 500 years or so, print has reigned as the primary medium for which we sort of create and consume information, and that served us pretty well. I mean, human civilization is built on the sort of interchange of information from the print medium, but it didn't even start 500 years ago with Gutenberg. It started many thousands of years before that with various writing systems and techniques, and has evolved to the form that we have today. And some of those principles that have evolved over time are completely valid going forward, and some we'll want to lose. But by way of example, I want you to try and read that text box on the left, the one in the white. That's actually English text, and you should be able to read that. But it's using a technique called scriptio continua, which is how the Romans used to read text way back when on papyrus. It's basically, there weren't any word breaks to speak of. They would pack all the text in and let it flow from line to line. There wasn't a lot of punctuation, and so that was the way things worked back then. Of course, we've evolved since then to sort of introduce lines, word breaks, and paragraphs, and certain sentence structures and whatnot in order to sort of give us visual clues about how to interpret and read the text comfortably. And the things that we see in print today are there because of that evolution and the way we're wired as human beings, with having two eyes and a brain, and the way we take in information sort of dictates the width of the column and sort of the requirements of legibility. As we transition to digital, there are various things that move forward with that to digital, and there's some things we will lose. So, obviously digital technologies have certain advantages over print, both in terms of immediacy and rich media, but they also have a few more challenges. And we're still at the early stages of adapting to this technology. And we've going pretty rapidly, but I don't believe we're there yet. And we're still learning quite a bit about what makes a really great content user experience using these new technologies. At the same time, we have to deal with the disruptiveness in terms of business models and the workflow behind generating content, and how those actually make it to the screen, or in this case screens, that have sort of been created by all this technology. Okay. So, for the last 20 years or so, we've sort of had text on screen, and particularly in the last 10 years with the explosion of the web, a lot of text has moved to the screen. And it's getting to the point where there are a number of content providers who publish only to the screen and don't have a print analog at all. But reading long-form content on screen is a bit tough for most of us using the conventional tools we have today, and that's for a variety of reasons. One important reason is the hardware itself. Until very recently, we didn't have the high-resolution screens that would make the text legible enough to make that a comfortable reading experience. But as that's been evolving, that's sort of something that's no longer really a blocking issue anymore, especially with technologies like ClearType and fonts sort of designed for ClearType. And as well, the size of the devices has mattered quite a bit too. When you're sitting at your desktop and you're sort of in this lean-in mode, it's not exactly the right mode to be consuming long-form content, like a book or a long article. So most of us would want to spend a couple pages like this, but if you're going to read anything of significant length, more of a lean-back experience is appropriate. Luckily, we have a number of, thanks to Moore's Law, we have a number of devices you can see here on the table, some examples. These are already a couple years old by now, of devices that are coming out that are getting smaller and smaller and richer in terms of functionality. Super high resolution screens, decent battery life, and some tablet functionality and that sort of thing. Afterwards, you're free to come up and take a look at them if you'd like. And then on the internet side of things, we're sort of more connected, so we can deliver content instantly. And with all the creation tools and the upload tools, we can sort of the time from creation to sort of publication and consumption is shortening quite a bit. And then finally, software, which is where sort of my world is. We're developing layout and typography and text and media technologies to sort of take the experience to the next level and make it really compelling. So part of what we've seen with the internet today is this behavior from end users called that Wired magazine called snack culture, which is basically people taking in content that they're interested in and just sort of picking and choosing from a variety of sources. And that's one of the great things about the internet is that we can, and the web, is that we can mash up content and we can consume it in a variety of ways on our own terms and sort of experience that long tail in a way that we haven't been able to do in the past. And that's great. But at the same time, we're actually seeing that users are spending relatively little time in any one experience. The average stat, this is a hard stat to come by, so this is what we could garner. There are relatively low page views per user per session. Somewhere in the order of 3 to 5 page views is the average, which means that people you typically click into a site, they'll maybe click around, navigate, and then they're up and out again. And so the user sessions are pretty short overall. And so I think, in a world where there's lots of RSS and search-generated traffic, that's can be a very good thing. But also you have to ask the question, what is at the heart of what is driving these stats? Is that the entire picture? Once you have somebody at your site, why can't you hold them a little bit longer? What can we do to increase the engagement and get people a little bit more caught up and sort of interested in your content for a longer period of time? You've basically successfully wooed them with your content from an RSS or a portal or what have you to your site. What can we do to keep them there longer? And I think in order to figure that out, we have to figure out what's going on today. So this is a set of screenshots from various types of content on the web today. And you have sports and encyclopedias and news and even a sort of shareholder report. But on the web today, using the standard web tools, we have basically the same metaphors and layouts, basically just branded slightly differently. And the navigation bar on the left-hand side with the 100 links, and then the main content area with some more links, and then some some ads glommed onto the side. Hello. Basically, we're sort of living in this table plus CSS world where, that's about the limit of our controls, and that's about the limit of our differentiation. As well, there are some constraints with sort of those web tools in terms of their ability to create user experiences that adapt to the user and to the machine that you happen to be running on. If I look around the room right now, I can see that people are using different types of devices of different sizes and orientations. But if I were to sort of load up your average web page, I bet that they're all exactly the same in terms of the presentation, which doesn't necessarily translate into a great presentation for you on your device. So in this case, I just pick on MSNBC. They sort of decide that instead of centering their content, they'll sort of move it over to the left, and then we get this unutilized space on the right-hand side. And if you go out and you buy one of those really nice laptops with a cinema screen, and it's gorgeous in the showroom floor, and super high resolution and whatnot, and you bring it home and you fire up and you go to the internet, and you get this experience. Let me get this thing to work here. And you're even leaving more content sort of, you're not getting what you'd expect in terms of a user experience. In fact, it's even less readable than you might expect. And that's because of the need to keep the column length relatively sort of at a certain length so that users can read that. If they just sort of let the text fly, as in this example, it's not a very readable experience for most of us. Come on. So what most website folks do is they just sort of pile it into a long scrolling region. And I sort of tried my hand at some fake Latin there. I called it scrollio continua, which basically is sort of commenting on the fact that we require users to sort of go through this long scrolling experience where they're having to micromanage their scroll bar to sort of keep the text in view. And on a particularly shallow machine, like maybe this one right here, it's even a more pronounced experience. And then, website typically sort of, paginate at the bottom because they know that, users don't always want to scroll to the for very long documents, as you can tell because there are ads at the top and there are no ads at the bottom. It's harder to sell ads down at the bottom there. As well, when you click on that next page, you actually sort of generate another page view, another opportunity to place and sell more ads, which is good, except there's sort of a trade-off between getting users to click and the drop-off rate that you see because people many times just abandon at this point. They don't go to the next page. And they don't go to the next page because they know that when they click on that next button, that navigation's inherently a risky operation. It's a disruptive operation because you click on that and the whole page gets torn down and then redrawn. And so there's this visual discontinuity that happens when that takes place. I don't think people are conscious of this. I don't think they think about it a lot. It's just human behavior, risk versus reward. And see if I can get this thing to. Okay, we've been here. Another part of this is sort of the the connectivity aspect. Wi-Fi has added tremendous mobility capabilities. We can walk around to parks and airports and coffee shops and enjoy a wireless connection. But wireless comes and goes. I mean, even at this conference, my wireless it comes and goes, and I experience this 404 error, and it's a bit frustrating. And so I'm finding myself spending my time micromanaging my connection all the time. Again, if I'm sort of into an experience, a content experience, it's very disruptive. And now I'm sort of motivated to move away from that site. Maybe not consciously, but as long as I'm changing, as long as I'm moving, I might as well move away. So all these things contribute to sort of a high energy state for end users, or the feeling that you're working when you're taking in content on the web. Doing this, hyperlinks, scroll bars, misconnections, that sort of, that sort of state. There's another aspect to the whole wireless thing too that I find a bit problematic in the mobile scenarios. That is, wireless tends to consume a lot of power. This is my personal machine right here, and if I turn the wireless off, I can get almost 4 hours out of it in terms of battery life. With wireless on, it's about an hour and a half. And so I'm motivated to sort of go get my content, turn the wireless off, and experience another 2.5 hours on the airplane of content or coffee shop or whatever. And the funny thing is, why wireless is pervasive, power outlets are not. I don't know why that is. Every airport I go to, I'm constantly looking around for that one outlet to plug in my laptop, and I usually have to sit on the floor like this person here, which isn't all that convenient. I keep hitting the back button. I'll turn that around. Okay. So just realized I had the wrong slides. So what makes a great content experience? If you sort of rethink the equation, what is it that we can do with content on screen to sort of keep users engaged and really deliver a user experience that would keep them in the experience longer? So first of all, it starts with great content, of course. But we can also just focus on creating a delightful user experience instead of just sort of throwing it onto the web in terms of presentation. In terms of leveraging and I'll go into detail about that in the next slide, but we also want to leverage the brand. Many of you folks sort of run well-established brands, and it would be really nice is when you put it on screen that the content experience was evocative of something that people have come to know and love. And then reach users where they are in terms of mobile scenarios, in terms of the living room, in terms of offline, online, in terms of media experiences. And then allow them to personalize it. Let them sort of create the experience that works for them. And then, of course, monetization, and then keep users coming back. So, because once you've got users sort of coming to your content, you want to basically reach out to them with a great desktop experience in many cases that can sort of remind them that you're there. So in terms of delightful experiences, I mentioned the lean in and lean back thing. Part of that is navigation. A big part of that is navigation. Letting users sort of use some common gestures that lets them navigate content in an intuitive and simple way without thinking about it. When you pick up a book or a magazine or watch a video, you don't have to wonder about how to sort of make your way through that content. You just do, and you're sort of consuming the experience and relaxing and enjoying the content. I think the same sort of experience is necessary for or important for textual content as well. If you can sort of reduce the navigation to a set of common gestures like back, forward, up, down, or a few flicks of the hand across the screen in different directions that are natural, intuitive, in the way that we've sort of come to expect as humans in dealing with content, I think that would create a better user experience as well. And then, providing context for where you are in the site, where you've been. Many times in the web, one of the problems that people seem to have is that they click into an article and they seem to get lost a little bit. Like there's all these links and all these things, and so the user behavior that we see, particularly at some of the larger sites, is that they will click into an article and then they'll click their way back to the home page and then up and out again. So they don't just proceed into the next article, related article, as we would hope they would. And then readability is critical, of course. Technologies that sort of make the text presentation as rich and engaging as you'd expect in print form, even better in some cases, since you don't have to sort of hold a big book and maybe light's not a problem, we can actually increase readability. And then we can also adjust the zoom level of the text such that adjust to a user's visual acuity needs. And then finally, the last part is robust connectivity. You know, if you can provide a sense of connectedness without having the tax of managing the connection, that's a great win too. And we can do that through techniques with offline, where we can go in RSS, we can go get information and serialize it down to the machine, and then let the user sort of let that fade into the background in many ways. I meant to get rid of this title, sorry. It sounded good, but it didn't really work. The point of this was you keep the experience personal for the end user, let them customize the experience, but also sort of keep the experience sticky in terms of the desktop, in terms of notifications, search and data visualization, community, and those sort of things that sort of get the users invested in the experience. And the last part here is, you know, design. You know, as you design these experiences, they should hold up across different screen sizes and devices, really. And you see a picture there with different devices, and you can actually just see in this room all these different devices. If you could have a design and a workflow that let you produce compelling experiences that adapt to a range of screen sizes, I think that's what we all want. But we can't require a new workflow for each screen. That's too expensive, and it's not going to happen. Part of the problem is we have to do things in internet time, which means that we can't sort of redesign things every time a new article or new story comes in. So we have to provide tools and functionality that makes some adaptability and some sort of reflow happen on the machine sort of automatically within the constraints of a good design. So at Microsoft, we've been investing in the reading experience for about 15 years. You know, it goes back to the days where we just wanted to see how far we could take reading in terms of bringing ebooks to the screen. We had a group that focused on reading science and sort of usability labs where they'd get people in a room and sort of test them against print and against other types of screens and other different types of layouts. You know, for example, a couple years back, they were able to do a study comparing sort of web scrolling with pagination and sort of flow layout, and sort of discovered that users strongly preferred the paginated layout to the scrolling thing. As well, this group actually invented things like ClearType and templates and did a lot with typography and whatnot. But when we started WPF about 5 years ago, we wanted to sort of create a platform where you could create next generation content experiences where you can blend in media and UI and rich content into one experience and have that be something that was as good or better than paper in many ways. And a big part of that is things like dynamic hyphenation, sort of letting the hyphenation engine run and sort of keep the text compact, optimal paragraphed, figures, floaters, headers, footers, all those sorts of things. Let me show you a quick demo of what that looks like. See if I can switch over here successfully. It doesn't look right. Screen's a little cut off. So this is just a simple article on cocoa and chocolate in a web browser. Nothing all that special. It's a lot of what I've been talking about in terms of the scrolling experience and whatnot. Let me just show you the same content sort of put into. So the only thing that was different from the two was we added the picture. But you'll notice that we have columns and typography here, and hyphenation, and pages, and that's dynamic. And if I resize the window, say my device is smaller, the content automatically adapts. And I can change the zoom. Sorry, it's getting chopped there, isn't it? We've had no end of trouble trying to get this set up, but and I can switch from single page mode to two pages at a time. And then the user is, of course, in control in terms of adjusting the text size to something that fits their needs. And so that's done with virtually no design at all. We just sort of take the text over and maybe add some fonts in there to make it more expressive. And that's a big part of our platform as well, is sort of enabling typography to be brought to bear on the experience. The content that you create in WPF and the apps that you create, you can include a font and have that be part of the experience without sharing the font with the entire system, which is a nice thing, particularly because font licensing tends to be an issue a lot of the time. Here's another sort of experience here. If this were a textbook, basically on Earth, say, well, this is great. I can have, sort of a text experience that looks great at different sizes, and I can style it in a way that is suggestive of the content. And then if I click into this content, I might find a sort of globe with sort of discussing population densities around the planet. And that's really cool. But what if we could make that sort of an interactive part of the experience so that users can just sort of provide overlays on top of that content to sort of make it more expressive and more interesting. And then if the user can actually take that and interact with that right inside the document without sort of any kind of windows popping up or other things that take you away from the overall experience, just right inside the content, provide richness. I can even kind of zoom in here. I don't know why the moon is there, just for, if there was population on the moon, I would be concerned, so I don't know. And this content will sort of scale just like any other content. And it's just built inside. The same is true with video, tables, other types of UI elements that you can just include inside of a content experience. And that's part of, this is sort of a hint of the vision that we had with Windows Presentation Foundation in terms of creating compelling user experiences around content. So let me switch back to the... So with this, I'd like to invite Robert Larson, Vice President for Product Development at New York Times, to talk about what they've done with the Times Reader. And they've had a beta program for the last 6 months, and so he can share with us some of those findings. Thank you.
Get that mic. Better? Okay. Just to take a quick poll, how many people have downloaded and used Times Reader? Okay, so about half. That's really great. I have about 10 minutes. I'm going to talk about the user experience we tried to create, the business thinking behind it, and for those of you who haven't seen Times Reader, I'll do a quick demo. Obviously, the team at Microsoft has thought a lot about making a great reading experience on the screen, and they came to us in summer of 2005 with a prototype which we thought looked amazing and presented lots of possibilities, and we began working together. The design of the reader was done by the Times. and most of the heavy lifting was done by Microsoft. And then we have a development team in-house as well. I'm neither the designer nor the developer. Tom Bodkin is here, who's the design director for the New York Times. He has a presentation tomorrow as well, and Tom was responsible for the design of Times Reader, the look and feel, working with talented designers Nick Bilton and Kelly Doe. And Nick Thusen is here, who's our lead software developer, who can talk about our experience working with WPF as well. Let me frame Times Reader for you in terms of both user experience and the business model. So the New York Times newspaper has about 1.1 million subscribers during the weekday, 1.6 million on the weekends. NYTimes.com, which is the largest newspaper website in the world, gets about 3.5 million visitors a day. According to Nielsen, upwards of 14 million a month. Our internal logs have a lot higher numbers because it accounts for an international audience. The business model in print is subscription. You pay a fee to get the newspaper delivered to you or on a newsstand, and we sell advertising into it. It's actually the same model online, but it's much more skewed toward advertising. There is a subscription layer called Times Select, but most of the revenue from our online products come from display revenue or classified revenue on the website. So our goal on the website is to increase engagement, to increase page views, which in turn we can deliver more impressions for our advertisers. Times Reader sort of fits right in between these two. When we looked at what was possible with this new technology, we saw we could bring some of the best things with print and some of the best things about online together, both from a design and usability standpoint as well as from a business standpoint. From a business standpoint, we placed Times Reader, again, sort of right in the middle, probably a little bit closer to print. Times Reader is currently a subscription product. It launched at the end of March as a subscription product. It's free to home delivery subscribers. There's a 30-day free trial for anybody, so if you haven't used it, you can go to www.nytimes.com/timesreader and try it out. No credit cards required. You can just use it. And then it's a monthly or annual charge, $14.95 a month or $165 a year. You might say, wow, that's a big price. It's actually 75% discounted from the print price. And we count Times Reader subscriptions toward our circulation goals. And there is an auditing bureau for circulation that sets the standards around pricing. And so we've actually priced Times Reader at the floor to make it as available as possible, while at the same time supporting our circulation business goals. On the design side, we wanted to take, and the user experience side, we wanted to create a delightful experience, a wonderful reading experience on a screen, and improve on some of the things that we can't do online. Some of the key things are just making it easier to read, making it a pleasure to read, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Kevin, can you hook me over to this other laptop? Thanks. And as Kevin talked about, he showed a screenshot of our website. It's designed for 1024 pixels. There's lots of white space around it. If you have a smaller resolution, you're getting some of it clipped. Kevin has a display here of lots of new ultra-mobile or mobile computing devices. So there are a range of screens from very tiny to big, and that presents us with a design challenge. So again, the WPF technology showed a promise of having us design once so that it would look great on any screen and allow the reader, the consumer, to personalize the experience, to set their fonts the way they would want them to be. Kevin talked about the offline reading experience. That's obviously something we can't do on the web, so we wanted to be able to bring that to our customers with Times Reader. And finally, the packaging of the news. We redesigned nytimes.com last year. A lot of thought went into that, a lot of effort. And nytimes.com is a big news database with lots of different people coming for lots of different reasons. Some just to zip in for a specific article and get out. Some to look at the most popular list to see what other people think is interesting, and some to read. Times Reader was designed to read. That's why it's called Times Reader. It's meant to be a digital newspaper, combining the best aspects of print with online. So this is the homepage of Times Reader. It's a rich client. It sits in my Start menu. Across the top, you can see major sections of the website. Sorry, I also work on the website. Major sections of the paper. I can click on World, go to the World section. I can click on US, go to the US section. Or as you see, this little arrow pops up, and I can look at the headlines that are in that section. I can navigate by clicking on a headline, and I'll go to a story. You can see the text is laid out in columns. That's not something we can do on the web. There's lots of science to back up the fact that reading in narrower columns is a better experience for the consumer. I can change the font size to make it exactly how I'd like to see it. Kevin talked about ease of navigation. I can use, looking for the mouse here, I can use a mouse to navigate Times Reader. This one? Oh, I'll just use this. I can use the mouse to navigate Times Reader, but I actually use the arrow keys, left, right, up, down. The whole experience is designed so that you can do that. You could use a remote control if you had that kind of setup. But it actually just makes paging through really effortless, really effortless. I can't understate. It seems totally simple, but it makes a big difference in the experience. So I can use my right arrow key just to move through stories, and I can move my down arrow key to read through a story. As you can see, the photos are included. When there's more than one photo, they pop up, and I can enlarge them if I want using the slider over here, or everything becomes a slideshow. As Kevin talked about, everything will reflow. So again, if there's a very small device, the design's going to look great. I can set my font size to look appropriate at that level. Same thing happens with section fronts. Or if I have a giant monitor, I can set it much larger, and it's still going to look great. At the article level, we have some basic tools. I showed you the font tool. We also have the ability to save articles to your local machine, the ability to print, ability to email, and the ability to annotate. I don't have time today to show you those, but again, you can try it for yourself. There's a 7-day archive. It's easy to go back in time. When I click 7-day archive, you'll see it across the very top. There are a list of the days. The ones in light blue, I've already synchronized. I have that content on my local machine. The ones in gray, I don't have, and I could go pick up. So let me talk a little bit about synchronization. The reader's set up to go to nytimes.com at a setting you, the consumer, decide. Can be every half hour or every couple hours. And it will go and retrieve all the news that we've recently published on nytimes.com. So the Times newspaper is not static. We have a continuous news desk which is constantly feeding nytimes.com. nytimes.com is updated throughout the day. So the reader is always going back, checking for new content, and delivering it down to the client. So I can unplug, and I can read it wherever I am, in an airplane, in an airport, and I'm never lost without, even if I don't have a connection, I have all of my content. So it's portable. The content is bundled up. The section files are bundled up in a modified form of RSS, and the news articles themselves are bundled up in an XML standard called NITF, which is the news industry text format. We try to get the sync time down below a minute. Sunday's a little bit bigger, so it takes a little bit longer. When I'm navigating in a section like this, we've provided the ability to let the consumer know where they are. If you can look along the bottom, we have these little boxes. You can see I'm on this article. Boxes that are light gray, I've read. Boxes that are dark gray, I haven't read. I can mouse over them and see the headlines and jump to one. And it just lets me know where I am. So I have a good sense. In the physical paper, that's easy. It's, I'm dropping things on the floor, and I know I've read it. It's hard to do that on a website because it's so deep and rich, so we've tried to build into the user experience here lots of clues to give you a sense of where you are in the experience, because one form of user actually sort of likes to close out the paper and know that they've seen it all. You can view all sections if you want and see them all laid out, all the things I've read, all the things I haven't read, and jump right into that experience. Another really popular feature, let me close the 7-day archive here. I'll show you two other features. One is in search, when you type in a keyword, so let's type in Iraq. Sure, we have news in Iraq. As I type it in, you can begin seeing it laying out. We're actually sort of experimenting here with a different way to lay things out. I can go to a list view, a more traditional layout in a list. The relevance view is actually meant to give greater prominence to the stories that are more tightly aligned and sort of lay it out more like a newspaper front. I actually love this topic explorer. So every time we publish an article on nytimes.com, we actually add a lot of metadata to it. What was this article about? What were the people that were important to the article, the organizations, the places, the companies? And so this shows the relationships between these. So I can click on this article, see the metadata, see all the metadata that was surrounding it, and if I want to see other articles about Democratic Party, etc. Another very popular feature is news and pictures. Show that very quickly. News and pictures I can watch as a slideshow. If you have Vista, then you can actually have it be read to you using the speech technology. Oops, sorry. Let me go back. And this basically presents the news as a series of, here, I'll put it on the slideshow, as a big slideshow. So you can have that go sort of like a screensaver. When you see something that's interesting to you, you can click on the picture and it will take you directly to the story. So it's another way to create engagement and deepen the experience. The pictures obviously are very rich. We send down high-res pictures as well as low-res for different uses and different templates. So let me pull back because I think I'm at the end of my 10 minutes here, and again tie this back into the business of publishing Times Reader. Engagement is an incredibly important metric. We measure engagement by the amount of time the consumer spends and by the number of pages that they turn. And engagement is an important metric to our advertisers who want to obviously put messages in front of our audience. They want to know how engaged that audience is. So our experience so far in the beta is that the Times Reader audience is far more engaged than the audience that we have on nytimes.com. We have a very large audience on nytimes.com. As I said, they come for a variety of reasons. But on the reader, they're really reading. It is a digital newspaper experience. In print, the average reader will spend about 48 minutes a day reading the New York Times. On nytimes.com, the average reader will probably spend less than an hour in a month. In Times Reader, we're seeing about 23 minutes a day. So it's much closer to the newspaper, the physical newspaper reading experience. In terms of page views, we're seeing a 7 times increase in page view usage on Times Reader than we are on the website, and that's going to help drive our business forward. Kevin?
Thanks, Rob. You know, another... sorry. Okay. Another part of that, I just want to do one more feature, if you will, which is, you know, once the user sort of got the app on his or her machine and they're syncing on a regular basis, it's kind of nice to sort of have Vista do some of the heavy lifting for the end user in terms of finding content. So Vista's got this incorporated search feature where you just hit the little sort of Windows key, and then you can type something like Iraq, and up should pop you know, search results that are sort of, you know, right there inside of the start menu, and they point to a given article. And if I click on that, then I will navigate to that. And the app doesn't have to be running or anything. It's just to be offline. It's just another sort of aspect of that integration and getting users sort of invested in the experience. Let me go back to the slides real quick. So Rob covered these things, so I'm just going to go past them. You know, part of what Rob was touching on earlier was the ad experience. And all those page views are an important aspect of any ad-funded digital content product. You know, it's been said that the business of ad-funded content is as simple as this formula, which is basically the number of unique visitors times the frequency they visit you during a given period times the amount of pages they view per visit times the rate per page. And it's basically a very simple formula, which, you know, there's only two things you can do to increase your revenue then. That's basically increase your number of users or increase how much money you get per user. And you do that basically by having better ads and or by having a better experience and having them page through it more often. Those 7 times the page view, that helps a lot. And then the second thing is having more profitable, targeted, contextual ads that sort of have higher yields. So, there have been a bunch of ad studies done, and they all seem to point to, the fact that a lot of the ads that we have online today are suboptimal. What we find is that, from the eye tracking studies that the Poynter Institute has done, for example, is that users are really good at filtering out ads that are sort of attached to the top and the sides of content experiences. They just don't even see them. We just become very good at sort of ignoring those. And so ad providers have sort of compensated by having things fly out, animate over the top of content. And of course, that results in users sort of having a little bit of negative emotion towards that brand, and sort of an arms race of people trying to defeat these ads going on. And we find that users really want to control the experience around advertising. They don't want things flying at them out of nowhere, and all that interruption just serves to sort of push users out of the experience, about that engagement again. We also find that full-page ads are easy for people to ignore and skip. There's no reward for sitting on a page with a full-page ad on it, because there's no content there that you can speak of. The other thing is that ads should say what they're about quickly. Something that animates for a long time, then finally comes up and says, Kevin's whatever service. It's like they may not even see that because they just filter that out and don't want to spend time with it. And then animated ads should really be smart on subsequent views. Again, about that user experience. If we really want to keep people engaged, don't punish the user with the same animation over and over and over again. And then finally, the interactive ads can be very effective if they're done right, and is sort of part of the experience, and where the users can control on their own terms. So part of what we tried to do with the WPF content experience and with cooperation with New York Times is, how can we sort of include ads in the experience that are sort of better integrated, where there's no sort of clipped ads or ads that are glommed over the top of content, but ads as content itself. It's inside the content, it's well integrated, it's within the paragraph boundaries, and it looks like it belongs. Give the users in this thing a sense of control, where getting past or to an ad is as simple as turning a page. And so there's no sort of scrolling of ads either, no clipping. Every ad that's placed is placed 100%. So an advertiser knows that if it was shown all the way. And, that lets us sort of do larger, sort of richer ads as well. And finally, ads in this experience are online or offline. We can actually serialize ads as part of the RSS feed, and then use a little server component to place it in the content dynamically according to a set of rules from the publisher about the type of ad for the type of content and the end user. And then when the user connects, which is most of the time, but if they were offline and then connect back up, we can report the information in terms of page views and even click-throughs. Some of these ads have click-through experiences offline. So I'd like to invite Warwick Fitzgerald, who has of Live Technology, who is CTO there and has an interesting take on how we can take a set of ads that are out there today and bring them into a better integrated experience like this one. Warwick?
Hello. All right. Hello. Good morning. Okay, so one of the things that Kevin pointed out is that the goal of all these different types of devices is that you can reflow content in a very dynamic, comfortable platform, which is all very nice. But when you compare the digital advertising technology that we're used to today on the web, we have the Internet Auditing Bureau, which specifically states that banner ads need to be X by Y, or there are specific fixed standards to the sizes and dimensions of these ads, which, as you can see, once you start to reflow this content and you start to get every imaginable size out there, is completely in contradiction to what we're trying to achieve. In other words, giving them the best visual experience that they can get. So what we realized was that a number of our existing clients that we work with at the moment, where Live Technology helps print, automation, video automation, all forms of basically advertising, we automate the generation of this. And what we realized is that there's actually a lot more in common with the digital newspaper over here with print than there is with the internet, in the sense that when you look at newspaper ads today, they need to resize based on the size of the newspaper. They need to take into every newspaper has a slightly different size, whereas the internet has specific standards on sizes. So what we've focused on is essentially porting over a lot of the technology that we have today for dynamically creating print ads into the Windows Presentation Foundation. And what you'll see, so as you may have noticed while going through these guys over here, you'll see that the ads that you actually see. You have to get out of it. Sorry? There are no ads of opinions. All right. So let's see if we go down to. So what you'll see over here is, again, the text has been flowed to give me the best viewing experience. But as a digital advertiser today, or as a print advertiser, how do I now deal with the fact that I have a variable size that I need to work with in this area? And to kind of kick off the conversation, or to make the comparison to print ads, we've brought kind of an example of one of our existing New York Times clients, which is actually Singular. So if we, oops, oh, that's not what I want to do. If we pop open, so what we have here is a pretty good example of a Singular ad which has this exact same problem. Now, if you look at the dealer slug that's down here, if you take a look at the dealer slug that's at the bottom, depending on the region that article actually, or that this ad runs in, you're going to have a variable distance essentially of dealer slugs at the bottom there, which means that the content needs to be placed differently. Depending on the size of the newspaper, you're also going to need to have a completely different design for each ad, which is very similar to the experience that we've created here, in the sense that depending on the size that I want to read, depending on my font size, the page I'm on, etc., the ad dynamically needs to resize. So the first thing we did was we took this challenge as a kind of a thought process as to how do we take our existing clients right now, like Singular, General Motors, who currently have all these assets in our system, and where right now they have the ability to output all of these assets in about 23 different forms of media, from print to TV, etc. And how do we add this 24th form of media, which is a WPF ad, essentially? And so the first example I'm going to show you, outside of the reader itself, is actually where did I put this guy? Is actually what we've done with this Singular ad itself. So if we launch this little ad viewer over here. So what you see over here is exactly that. A standard web ad, but it's based on a couple dynamic rules that we've created, as well as some kind of clever technology that takes into account exactly what this ad is doing at that point in time. So if you were reading this in a one-column ad, it knows to resize it down to give you the optimal viewing experience, depending on what size the ad is actually being viewed at. So again, the question now arises as to, okay, great. One of the things we realized a while back was that print advertisers think spatially. They have a tendency to go, okay, well, they're sitting there with the creative department. They go, I want that thing tacked to the left-hand side. It always needs to be an inch from the left, an inch from the right. So how do we give them the ability to essentially define rules like that in terminology that they understand, so that they can go straight from what they have today in our systems, where right now they output a print ad, we want them to be able to output a WPF ad. So what I'm going to be showing next is kind of a rough demo of the application that we've designed so far, which essentially allows you to define those rule sets within a WPF ad and essentially create one of these dynamic ad experiences that you have in there. So if we go back to this little ad layout builder over here. So I will again say that this is a bit of a rough demo, so don't crucify me here. So the first things first is that, and I've just taken a very simple example, which is I've just placed two boxes on the canvas, and I, as the designer or the art director or whoever's doing this, need some very simple way to define the rules around how each of these areas and the content in those areas behave as this ad resizes. So you'll see that in here, I've kind of just got this, kind of the same experience, which is as this resizes, I can kind of see how the ad behaves. Now, so once you actually go into to editor mode, you can kind of just kind of drag yourself an extra area which you can. So the content and the layout are kind of separated at the moment, in the sense that if I now go back into the editor mode over here, you'll see that I've got three areas. The 0 and 1 were the first two on the canvas, and area 2 is the one that I've just added. So I'd like to be able to define the rules around how area 2 behaves, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I'm going to set a left rule over here, which is going to say that the left is based on area 0. Actually, I want it to be based on area 1. I want it to be based on its right-hand side. So you can see how the box is kind of placing itself dynamically as I define these rules. Then at the same time, I want to make sure that whatever, let's say I'm going to place some content into this box that's at the top here. I want to make sure that it always takes up as much space as possible. So I'm going to set a width rule on this guy, and I'm going to say that the rule applies to the right-hand side of the box, and it's based on the page. The page's right-hand side, exact value minus, let's say, 10 pixels. All right. So I now have a very simple rule set that says, great, this box is going to always stick to that side of the content like that. Now, so the second kind of challenge that you're faced with is that you now have a bunch of creative that which is of a static size. And what you don't want is you don't want a single image that you stick in there that just sort of scales and gets blurry or gets out of proportion, because one of the biggest problems that advertisers would have with this kind of thing is that if you have 2 or 3 phones per se in the ad, you kind of have to keep them in perspective. If you're looking at the singular razor, you don't want it to look bigger than the BlackBerry or something like that. But the basics of we came up with a very simple technology which we've been using in print for quite some time now, which is the required area logic, but essentially, which does something to this effect. So now you can imagine that top area over there with something like this car in the actual image, right? So we had a shape something like this. So in this image, what we've done is we've defined that irrespective of the type of art that we're actually placing into that box, we have a required area, which means that I don't care what that ad looks like. When I'm looking at that box, I want to make sure that the product is actually visible within the bounding box of how that thing is actually resizing. And what you'll see is that if you can imagine this inside the actual content as it's scaling, you'll actually see that depending on the size of the box, it will essentially make sure that the car or the product is always in focus inside the actual portion of the box itself. And so through developing a number of these kind of components, what we've done is we've ported our current print layout engine into WPF, and then merged a lot of the different pieces of logic that we currently use into a kind of this rich experience that allows you, and actually through the use of Silverlight and a few other things, are allowing us to actually give our current print customers a much better building experience online as well. So, for example, what we have is the ability to define what we call collections per se. In the sense that in a print ad where you have a static image in an area, you know exactly how it needs to look, what it needs to look like. But with something like this, when it resizes, you kind of have this challenge where what happens when this thing gets fatter? And as you can see, with the collection, you can kind of define what this vehicle does depending on the actual aspect ratio. Okay, so, and last but not least, as Kevin was kind of pointing out, we have this great ability to have an offline experience per se. And what we're seeing is the merge of the sort of the digital groups and the print groups here, where they kind of have to start to collaborate. So what we've now focused on as well is allowing them to take the existing content that they have in our system and linking it to what's called a mini site, which will work offline with the actual ad that's in here too. So when you actually click on the actual ad itself, as you'll see is that it actually will take you to a linked mini WPF ad which contains all this additional content, kind of like a hook into the catalog per se. And the nice thing for all of our print clients is that they already have all of this content in the system. For example, in this ad over here, GM currently uses the live ad maker system to produce this video over here. So the question is, how do we bring all of the content together into a kind of a usable catalog system that the current print clients can use to essentially place onto the New York Times site? And that's all I have.
Okay, we're running short of time, so we're going to improvise. I wanted to show you one more demo here. Which one is it? Oh, can we switch to the Mac, please? Okay, so part of what we've done in the last few months is create an SDK for creating these kind of experiences, where you just basically, as a publisher, you can take an RSS feed and enhance the RSS feed with more information, like typographic information and multimedia, that sort of thing. Rob was talking about the fact that their RSS feed points to a NITF news industry standard XML schema, and that plugs in into the app and gets transformed into WPF stuff for presentation. So part of that going forward is, we have the really great Windows desktop experience, which is sticky and can go with you offline and all these things. But what about, can we take that same sort of design effort and the feed and all that work that you put into it to reach other devices, including, of course, the Mac, but cell phones and the smaller devices as well? And the answer is yes. We've sort of been working on a toolkit, and we're going to give you, for the first time, a preview of that here today that lets you use Silverlight to get the experience with just the Silverlight runtime, where you can, you saw the demo yesterday during the keynote where you navigate up to the Silverlight site and you hit the little thing and you download the little 1 megabyte thing, and you're good to go to see content like this. And you can see that we can sort of capture a lot of the same experience in Times Reader in the browser, like Safari in this case, but it works in Firefox and IE and whatnot as well. And you get the same navigation, that same layout, and we can actually even change, if I can use this mouse, change the window size and have the content adapt as you would with the Times Reader. And it's pretty fast, and you get ads and whatnot as well. And all this is done with WPF generating WPF design, layout, and content on the back end, generating Silverlight consumable content inside the browser. So with one design, one investment, you can target a range of machines and devices. So with that, we have just 7 minutes for Q&A. Nathan, who was going to talk a little bit about design, I think if you guys address questions to him during this short Q&A panel part, it'd be great. Come on up, guys. Good.
Just a quick question.
Step away.
I think I'll stand over here.
Should we just turn the mics off and...
Just a quick question. There's a real delineation here, even as you mentioned, the way you look at the business between the website and this rich WPF environment. I'm wondering what lessons you can take from how readers are interacting with WPF and apply it back to the web, where you've mentioned there's so many kind of shortcomings that you're trying to overcome as well.
In this environment. So the question for us will be, how can we bring some of that to nytimes.com? It's going to require experimentation, but we'll do it. Our goal is always to bring the best experiences that we can to our customers. I can't give you a timeline. I can't say when it's going to happen, but we'll continually iterate and improve and try to do that. I just want one side comment. The three advertisers that we have in TimesReader, Columbia University, AT&T, and Tourneau, are in TimesReader. The demo you saw with GM was a mock-up for this presentation, just in case anybody from GM is watching on the web. Need that clarification. But feel free to call.
I didn't get to hear the whole presentation, so just tell me to be quiet if you already answered this. But long-term time subscriber, you subscribe to the paper, my lawn in New Jersey, started reading on the web, now a Time Select subscriber, love the reader, use the trial. The reader is 3 times more expensive than my Time Select subscription.
Correct.
So one could draw the conclusion that you're putting the premium on the presentation rather than the content. And so my question, because you want me to pay a premium for the presentation rather than for the content that I still get on the web. So
Right.
Is that the direction you see things going, where we're going to devalue some of the content in favor of the actual format and presentation we can get it in?
No, I think that we have to everything is a point in time. And at this point in time, it's not just the presentation, it's also the fact that you can take it with you. It's portable. You can look at it when you're offline. That has a value as well. A few years from now, if we have connectivity ubiquitously, free, then that value goes away and we'll rejigger our models. But at this point in time, there is a value to that.
You should sell that value more. You should market that value much more strongly.
Well, the marketing will begin next month. Yes. Are you a print? You said you're a print subscriber?
No, I know I would get it for free.
Oh, okay.
I stopped my print subscription. Now I'm like this trade-off. Do I want to get a print subscription even though I'm just going to pile up the paper
Right.
and fill it on the recycling bin, because then it amortizes the cost
Right.
of the reader.
And I should say that if anyone is a Time Select or a Crossword subscriber, you get a prorated refund, and so those services are included within TimesReader. So one is $50 a year, one's $40 a year. That brings the price down as well.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
The Mac piece is interesting, but do you think there's a possibility of a real desktop client for other platforms other than Windows?
Microsoft is showing you what is possible with Silverlight in the browser. We're trying to bring the complete TimesReader experience to the Mac, and that's what we're exploring right now. The Mac audience is incredibly important to us. We know we have a higher percentage of Mac users within our subscription base. As I said, TimesReader is being given away free to print subscribers. We can't alienate that audience. We've heard loud and clear through the beta that we did that the Mac folks want this product, and we're working as hard as we can to bring it to market as fast as we can.
I have 2 questions with regards to advertising. When you've got a
So on the logging and reporting side, when you're offline in the reader, we're actually logging basic web usage, but we're doing it offline. And then when you synchronize to get the latest news, we synchronize your log files.
And how is that secure so that IAB doesn't question those stats?
Well, we have to work. This is a whole new set of standards, so all of those policies have to be negotiated. The idea of working with agencies, during the beta, it was difficult for all the reasons you just pointed out. What live technology brings is really a solution that agencies and publishers are already using to provide solutions to print, which then can be repurposed and used in WPF and Silverlight.
So the rule sets that I was demonstrating there is actually what Singular uses today to actually define how their ads resize in the newspaper. What we're really doing is extending that into WPF so that it just behaves dynamically inside the reader itself.
And I just have to point out that the web ads, are you can host them in this experience. It's through interop technologies you can totally host the typical web ads that are there today. So if you want to take the experience to the next level, then live technologies technology comes into play in terms of driving the cost of conversion over or down.
Clearly, your content is a big piece of your brand, but it seems that as you move from print to .com to reader, the visual piece and the tactile piece of the brand experience seems to be continually reduced. So you have your print publication, you've got .com, which has at least the New York Times.com masthead at the top, although you remove the tagline from .com. Then we come here and you actually reduce New York Times further. I'm just wondering decisions behind that and from a visual design perspective.
I would actually argue, so going from print to web, I completely agree. We have to use Georgia as the font on the website. It's a lovely font, but it's not our font. In the reader, we use Cheltenham, which is our font. It was actually run through ClearType, and that's why the reader gives you a much stronger brand association. And the masthead is just as visible. We actually had lots of internal debates about our tagline, all the news that's fit to print, and tried to come up with another one that might be appropriate in digital, and haven't arrived at exactly the right one yet. But I actually think the reader brings us closer to the brand experience with the WPF technologies and our ability to have our own font in the experience. It's up to the consumers to decide, but at least we internally feel that way. The other thing I just want to mention, and then we'll take another question, is part of our relationship with Microsoft was at the end of our working together, there would be an SDK, which all the publishers could use, and we should spend a little time on that because I know you already have several publishers using the SDK and are actively seeking the...
Yeah, I mentioned it at the very end because time was limited. We're actually out of time, but there's an SDK for publishers to sort of take these types of experience and plug in an RSS feed in their own design. And we like to think that the tools, the presentation tools that we're providing as part of this SDK actually make it possible to create that differentiation and that branded experience. Rob mentioned that the font is part of the app, and it is part of the app, and it's not shareable with anybody else. It's built into the app. And in fact, even in the Silverlight version, that is the Cheltenham font right there. The font doesn't go to the machine, though. It's just by way of the conversion process, we're able to produce a great experience in the browser without compromising the font.
For Robert, I didn't see the crossword puzzle.
Oh, it's there. It's there. You go into the More menu, and we actually have all 7 days there available for you. So when you synchronize your news, we sync them down. And we actually decrypt the previous day's puzzles, so the solutions are behind it if you want to use it. We don't have a WPF crossword puzzle player yet. We use the same player we have on the web, but it is built into the experience now.
Any other questions? We have time for maybe one or two more.
What's the way you're going to do the sort of SDK?
It's available right now. We'll make a link available for you to get information about it. We're still sort of licensing the SDK. We're still collecting feedback on how to tool it and whatnot, and so that's an important part for now. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.